Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Oviedo CRA Governing Board meeting. It is Monday, February 5th, 5:35-ish p.m. We have all members present. At this time, I'd like to, let's see, what do we have on the agenda here, Barbara? We have the minutes. I just signed them, but I guess I'll take a motion to adopt the January 16th minutes as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? I already signed them, so I hope not. Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please.
Those were the meetings from the November minutes that you signed.
Oh, okay.
You have to approve the January one.
All right. I thought that was in front of me. I do apologize. All those in favor of the motion on the table to adopt the January 16th meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have an update on the CRA plan discussions. For this one, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. John Jones.
Correct. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Oviedo CRA Governing Board. Tonight we're going to identify potential projects for inclusion in the updated CRA redevelopment implementation plan, the Table 10. There are several categories of which we can put projects underneath those categories, including administration, land use and urban form, business development and grant programs, redevelopment, cultural and historic preservation, streetscapes, transit and transportation, stormwater, and utilities. Our preliminary discussions have identified 3 potential projects for inclusion, and those would be the Wood Street extension, a public art program, and also a residential fix-up and improvement grants program. So, those were the 3 items that we have discussed previously. Now we'd like to open it up for discussion and input from the board and also from the public. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The 3 projects that we've discussed in the past have been the Wood Street extension, a public art program within the CRA, and also a residential or fix-up improvement grants for the neighborhoods in the CRA.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody who would like to start off our discussion this evening?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I don't know if this is
Mr.
a
Axel,
motion or it's a discussion. I just want to throw back out there what I proposed back in November with one slight wrinkle. And I'll be very specific in Table X under transit and transportation. I'd like to change the line item that refers to Lindsay Lane extension to Wood Street extension and add one additional line under that section that says transit and transportation infrastructure improvements. I believe the last time I proposed road improvements, but I figured I'd make it the entire category.
Okay.
I do have a question as to interpretation. Perhaps you can help me with this, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir.
We have separate categories for streetscape and transit and transportation.
Yes, sir.
I believe under streetscape, and I just want to make sure this is the case, it's got Phase 2 design and engineering and Phase 3 construction. So it goes into Phase 2 and Phase 3 of Broadway. So would this allow the CRA, if it so desires, to fund the now being designed landscape and streetscape improvements on Broadway?
For the portion that is within the CRA, yes, sir.
Okay. So there's no need to add anything there if we so
Correct.
desire. It's already there.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Axel. And who would like to go next? Anybody? Tim, you're good? You good? Bob?
I'm good.
Megan?
Good.
Steve?
So the residential improvement stuff, do we have any ideas what could be accomplished? I mean, that's such a, I think that, I said at the last meeting, I think that there has to be, obviously the big fundraiser for the CRA is Oviedo on the Park, but the outside areas, older areas of the city, do we know what we can do and how they would apply to fix up some of those areas that are paying in and helping towards the CRA? I'd like to just see them get some some value back and something to improve. Do we have a list of anything that's priority, or?
We can sit down with Bobby to go over with Mr. Wyatt, pardon me, we can sit down with Mr. Wyatt to go over the capital improvements program for various infrastructure improvement with regard to stormwater or sanitary sewer systems that may need to be installed or improved in certain areas. The residential fix-up or improvement grant that we discussed earlier in the evening is for individual properties, and it would be similar to the facade grant program. It would be a matching grant to help people fix up their buildings, whether internal stabilization or external facade improvements.
Now, how would you go about, informing residents out there? Because I would assume that probably a high number don't even know there is a CRA or what it does and what might be option. If we all, the 7 of us, identified a few things like, hey, we could make this program available for this, for these outside of Oviedo on the park, would we send them mailers? And I just think we need to just look at how we go. I know you can't answer it all tonight, but yes, everything that Mr. Axel talked about and everybody else on this board is good with Wood Street and the parks and all of that. But let's just make sure that while we're doing that we fix up some of these areas that are paying in. You don't want to.
Yes,
you don't want to. Make something a Cadillac and leave something, not looking well when they're paying for it. They got to get some stuff. So I don't know how we go there, but that would be something I would just be interested in. Maybe
Yes, sir.
we can balance them all out and get them all done.
Okay.
That's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
Got anything, Keith? You good? John, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
We're not changing, obviously, any items that are already in the plan, even though the
Yes, sir.
board has not decided to move forward on the boardwalk or parking structures, things like that
Yes,
are
sir.
still part of the plan.
Yes, sir.
What about moving the boundaries? How do we
Moving-
accomplish that? Because, we got all this empty land behind us here.
Yes,
that
sir.
really should be in the CRA.
Yes, sir. To move the boundaries, you would have to complete a finding and necessity study to identify identify that certain conditions of blight exist in those areas. The finding and necessity study would identify if there are those conditions. You need to have at least 2 of the 17 possible conditions in expanding the CRA area. Once you complete the finding of necessity study, you would also have to get the delegation of authority revised by the county to expand those boundaries.
Now, that's a longer process, I'm assuming.
It's the last time it took us about a year. The finding of necessity was the easy part. It was the negotiating with the county and setting up the plan to include projects that they wanted to see implemented in that area as well, as part of the development negotiations with them.
When we were first setting up the CRA, was that considered for part of the boundaries, or was it never considered? Was it ever looked at? Maybe I should ask that question.
There had been some discussion to include the spray field area or the rapid infiltration basin areas. However, it was not formally included in the CRA finding of necessity study.
Okay. If the board was going to consider that, how would we bring it forward to the board for consideration, cost, and everything like that? What's the process?
We could put together a proposal that would outline what the cost and schedule would be for the finding and necessity study and also the discussions with the county. Usually it's around a $50,000 report for a rough order of magnitude cost and approximately 6 months in duration to complete that study.
Okay. Yeah, we just seem, the land is vacant now at this point. It's probably, in my opinion, something that we should consider, but if it's okay with the board, maybe I'll add that as a discussion item for our next meeting so we can all kind of chew on it and think about it. Is that consensus for that? And John, if you can give us a basic outline.
Yes, sir.
Just make it a discussion item, basic outline of the discounted Oviedo cost.
Yes, sir.
And so on and so forth, and what it would entail and what the area looks like, and basic info, so we can have a discussion at our next CRA meeting.
Are there any other areas that the CRA would like to include besides the RAB basins?
I'll leave that
What
up
was
to
that
the
again?
board.
Are there
Yeah,
any
sure,
additional
sure.
properties or areas where you would like to see the CRA boundaries changed or revised?
Is the Albertson Shopping Plaza already in the mix? Because that seems like,
It is not in the CRA at this time.
okay. And maybe hopping across 434 to some of the historic places?
Okay?
that's a good point. We had that one, that probably the most historic building down there, and it's on
It's
the wrong
right
side of the
outside.
street.
Yeah.
Stoner's building, yeah.
Yeah, the doctor's office. Well, that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything else?
I've got a quick question, if I could.
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
I meant on this issue.
Oh, not on that.
Not on this. John, do you need anything else from us on this issue?
Well,
No, sir.
actually, it is kind of related to that.
Okay, go ahead.
It is on in the memo, we're talking about doing the grants for residential and then a historic preservation element, but I'm looking in the historic preservation and cultural section, there's no specific line. Do we need to add a line in there? I don't know how the legalities of these things work.
Yes,
Or-
ma'am. For the projects that we identified tonight, we are going to add those line items into the existing project sheet that you have, the existing implementation plan.
Okay, so on the historic front,
Mm-hmm.
what exactly is that going to say?
It would include language that was with regards to public art.
Not public art, there wasn't there mention of historic, let me scroll back up here.
I think what was said, some of the areas, the residential areas that are already in the CRA. I think that's what Councilman Henkin was after, but I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The boundary that we have for older neighborhoods.
Well,
That have been paying into it since 2010 or whenever we started.
Yes, sir.
Those guys.
Well, maybe a way to get a little historic element in there, because there really isn't. There's talk of creating new things in historic areas. Maybe those grants could be geared towards historic properties, which is kind of the same idea. Maybe they'll just be old, but if there could be some sort of emphasis on it, if it is a historic structure, give a little bit of, in our criterion selection process,
Okay.
aim towards that.
Anything else, Megan?
That's it.
Nope. Okay.
But, John, when did we start, when did the CRA kick off?
2010, sir.
Right, 2010. So if we put new people in there, the people who have been paying in for 7 years got to come first. I don't know how you word that, but can't have somebody who hasn't been in the CRA, hasn't been paying into it, and in the program, and then they can go do something right now where other people can't. So I don't know how that works out, but that was not my intent. My intent is the people that have been in it since day one, they got to see something. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. That would be a policy decision of the board.
Right. Whatever the seven of us decide.
You're going to
I'm
make
not
this.
understanding that. Are you saying that if the construction wasn't there?
No, I'm saying
Sure.
if somebody's has already been designated in the CRA boundary, they're already in the boundary already, and somebody new comes in, they can't have the full benefit of the CRA right now as somebody's been paying into it for 7 years. These people have been 7 years and they're paying in, and they got to see some improvement before somebody that would just come in, we've expanded it. I don't know how that legally works or if it is, but it just seems to me as if somebody's been in the CRA for 7, 8 years now, they got to see some improvement before somebody that just came in now.
In reference to the residential component.
Correct, yes.
But what the councilman's saying is that if we expanded the boundary, and we were
Prioritize.
including more homes, the homes that were already there should have higher priority if they're asking for a grant.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That sums it up.
Okay, I thought you were reversing it and saying that
No.
if you were part of historic, you're kind of left out.
No.
Okay, cool. That seems like a fair way to do it.
Okay. Is there anything else from the board on this? John, what do you need from us? Just a motion to add these 3 items? So why don't you formulate the motion as you'd like to?
Yes, sir. We would need a motion from the board directing us to include the items of the Wood Street extension, renaming Lindsay Lane to Wood Street, adding the transit and transportation improvements line, adding the residential fix-up grants, and adding language with regards to public art as well.
Residential, too.
Yes, sir. Residential fix-up improvement grants.
Okay, great. There's
Yes,
a
sir.
motion?
So moved.
So moved?
Second.
Second. Motion second. Any further discussion? Steve, Dave, anything else? Up and down the board? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have a bunch of upcoming meetings that I'll announce. They're all at,
5:30?
let me just confirm, they're all at 5:30 p.m. here at Oviedo City Hall in the City Council chambers.
Sir.
So we have March 5th, May 21, July 16, August 20, October 15, and December 3rd. With all that being said, is there anything else from anybody on CRA business?
Quick question.
Sure.
John, what's the current balance we have in the CRA now? Do you have it?
The current balance is, you have a cash reserve of $130,891.
Okay,
We'll have more money next year.
yes. All right, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
The anticipated TIF revenue for next year is approximately $539,000. So we're looking at a total available TIF revenue, including carryover, of about $670,000 for next year. If we less out the Oviedo on the Park payment and the finance support for the financial department, we'll have a available balance of about $403,000 available for projects.
Perfect. All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Copy that up. All righty. With all that being said and asked, I'm sorry, you have something, Keith? No? All right. With all that being said and asked, we will adjourn the meeting at about 10 of 6.